Well, the first day of Donald Trump's visit to China is over, and it has already brought a lot of unexpected surprises. On one hand, Donald Trump is praising his meeting with Xi Jinping and says that both sides agree that something needs to be done about Iran, that the Strait of Hormuz must remain open, and that global trade should be free. On the other hand, we still haven't heard any specifics on the key issues that Trump came to China for, and for which he brought along 17 top executives from the largest US companies. But what we did hear was an undisguised threat. The Chinese leader Xi Jinping, looking Donald Trump in the eye, he stated that the US and China could enter into an open war over Taiwan if Trump does not make concessions. And the Chinese leader also called on Trump to work together to keep their countries from falling into the Thucydides trap. And now I'll explain what is meant by that. So let's sum up the first day of Donald Trump's official visit to China. I'm Alex Cipici, let's discuss this together. But before we start, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, like this episode, and leave any comment under this video. And subscribe to my Telegram channel, Peachy News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So Donald Trump and Xi Jinping met today in Beijing. Early in the morning, the US president arrived at Tiananmen Square in Beijing, where he began his meeting with China's leader, Xi Jinping. The leader of China greeted the US president with a handshake, immediately showing who was in charge. Xi Jinping demonstratively did not let go of Donald Trump's hand. And he held it for a long time to make him nervous, and he succeeded because Trump started to fidget a little. Trump is directly accompanied on the trip by members of his national security and economic team, including U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth, Trade Representative Jamieson Greer, and U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. In addition to representatives of the Trump administration, delegations of company CEOs are also present at the event, including Jensen Huang from Nvidia, Tim Cook from Apple, and of course Elon Musk is there as well. Anyway, the talks are underway, and the first thing Xi Jinping said to the American president in the Great Hall of the People in Beijing was not about trade or Iran, but about Taiwan and the threat of a major war. And he said it like this, and now I will quote verbatim from the official Chinese statement. If this issue is not handled properly, there could be clashes or even conflict between the two countries, which would put the overall China-US relationship in a very dangerous position. Yes, friends, Xi Jinping immediately took the initiative and showed that he would be the one to set the agenda. And pay attention to the definitions Xi Jinping uses: clash or even conflict. This isn't a diplomatic euphemism, it's a direct warning aimed right at the current President of the United States. And it's important to understand that this is not the first time. Let me remind you that Xi Jinping already said something similar last June during a phone call with Trump. But back then it was over the phone, and now it's in person in Beijing in the first minutes of the historic summit between the leaders of the two superpowers. Beijing wanted the whole world to hear this, and the whole world did hear it. China is threatening the US with war if Trump makes the wrong decision regarding Taiwan. Essentially, Xi Jinping wants Trump to understand that Taiwan is an issue that can either strengthen or break US-China relations. And his call for Trump to exercise special caution should not be underestimated. But let me add one very important detail here. According to the White House, Taiwan is not mentioned at all in the outcome of the meeting. This means that the two leaders did not reach any meaningful consensus on this issue. Xi Jinping spoke, Trump listened, but made no public promises. And that in itself is already an answer. Now let's figure out why Taiwan is such a pressing issue on the agenda right now. Taiwan is anxiously watching Trump's summit in China because $14 billion in American arms deals are at stake. The point is, before leaving Washington, Trump told journalists that, attention, he plans to discuss selling weapons to Taiwan with Xi Jinping. This is truly unprecedented. No American president before him had ever publicly announced that he would consult with Beijing on military supplies to Taipei. I'll say it again, it's the same as if Trump said, I'll talk to Putin and discuss with him what weapons to sell to Ukraine. Or I'll talk to the leader of Iran about what weapons the US can sell to Israel. The reaction to Taiwan is obviously concern. Second, American military stockpiles are critically depleted by the war with Iran. And today, the Center for Strategic and International Studies writes, quote, The amount of critical munitions in American arsenals is no longer sufficient to confront an adversary like China, and it will take years to restore stockpiles to pre-war levels. This means that if China decides to take action on Taiwan right now, the US will be responding with depleted stockpiles. Beijing understands this, Xi Jinping knows it, and Trump knows it too. That's why there's such caution in public statements. And third, Taiwan itself is preparing for the worst. Taiwan's opposition-controlled legislature approved additional defense spending of $25 billion. It might seem like a lot, but it's not. It's less than what the government requested, and they asked for $40 billion. But the fact itself is telling. Taipei has stopped relying solely on the American security umbrella and is starting to build its own defense. Now about Iran, because, well, without it, you can't truly understand Trump or Xi Jinping. According to official sources, Trump and Xi Jinping agreed on the following. The Strait of Hormuz must remain open for the free flow of energy resources. By the way, this is the first concrete joint statement by the two leaders on the Iranian issue. And here's an important detail right away. Xi Jinping showed interest in buying American oil in order to reduce China's dependence on the Strait of Hormuz and primarily on Iran. Let me put it in simple terms. China is telling Trump that, fine, we can open the Strait of Hormuz. We will put diplomatic pressure on Iran, but give us your oil. And knowing how China negotiates, they will push for big discounts. And it must be admitted that this is a geopolitical bargain from which both sides can benefit. If this plan is implemented, well, credit should be given to Donald Trump here. As a result, during the state banquet, Xi Jinping stated, and I quote, "American-Chinese relations are the most important bilateral relationship in the world, and the countries should be partners, not rivals. Партнерами, а не соперниками." Of course, it sounds good, but it sounds exactly the same as before any summit in the last 20 years. And then the details and negotiations begin, and it turns out that not everything is so smooth. And this is where things get really interesting, because Xi Jinping brought up the topic of the Thucydides trap today. This is a historical principle according to which a rising power and a declining or fading power almost inevitably go to war. This is exactly what Xi Jinping is asking Trump about, whether the US and China can avoid this very trap. After all, China is sure that the US is declining, and they themselves are definitely on the rise, and so Xi Jinping says that we can choose a different path. But for that, you must respect our red lines. First and foremost, the issue of Taiwan. And as strange as it may sound, Trump has already stated that the meeting was incredibly useful. Although the main part of the business negotiations about trade and opening the Chinese market for American companies is still ahead. But Trump has already invited Xi Jinping to Washington on September 24. So what was the outcome of the first day of Donald Trump's visit? Let me emphasize, the official part of Donald Trump's visit to China. Trade deals were announced, but details remain undisclosed. Regarding Iran, there was a joint statement on the Strait of Hormuz, which is already significant. There is no consensus on Taiwan, but the issue is becoming more acute, although Trump has a clever move up his sleeve. A concession to Xi Jinping could be expressed in some criticism of Taiwan, criticism of the president of Taiwan, or silent agreement not to push forward the next planned major arms sale package. But that would be the beginning of the collapse of American power in the region. Negotiations are ongoing, and we will learn about the results through actions, not words. But at the same time, the words of the Chinese leader are quite eloquent, because he is clearly receiving Donald Trump from a position of strength, clearly not from a position of weakness. That's exactly why the whole world is watching this summit right now. Let's see what Trump will start saying when he returns home. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can make a donation of any amount using the links and payment details in the video description. I will be grateful for any support you can give. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye. To be continued.